Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, John Wachter. Let's get you informed. Today's episode is a quick recap of the WILDcard weekend and what a weekend it was. And I'm also going to finish it off with my predictions for the games this weekend. I'm not going to go past this weekend because it's just going to get redundant if I do the same thing every week. But so let's just start with the recap. The term wild card absolutely lived up to its name this last weekend. After a dominant performance by the Chiefs that just absolutely mauled the Texans. I mean, I thought that the game was going to be one-sided, but I didn't think that the Texans were going to look that bad. I feel bad for Brian Hoyer trying to go outside or do anything with his social life because it's going to be a very long off-season for him after that performance. But after that performance, Steelers and Seahawks victories were almost miraculous. And at that point, I literally... Well, not literally, but I pretty much believed that my playoff bracket had magical powers because both of those teams should have lost, but both of them were winning on my bracket. So I was going to play the Powerball and everything. But glad I didn't because I probably would have lost some money there. And the Redskins loss really brought me back down to earth, actually. Had they won, maybe I would have gone through with it. But it also, the Redskins losing made it so that none of the home teams won this past weekend. So all the games were considered upsets because all the lower seed teams won. With that said, in my opinion, the Bengals absolutely deserved their loss. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I think that both their fans and their players, I'm trying to use terms that aren't insulting, but they did not play like professionals, and their fans did not act kind. I'll put it that way. I don't want to use the term they acted like thugs because that's an overly used thing, but when you can't control your fan base, but when you have your fans throwing trash at an injured quarterback or injured anybody on any team, that's not acceptable to me. And ultimately, their players are what made them lose. Vontae's perfect, and Pac-Man Jones being on the same team is kind of just asking for problems, in my opinion. I'm going to leave it at that. I could go on a very long rant about both of those people. They have long histories. Both of them, I'm not sure if Pac-Man got fined or not, but even after the game, him saying that Antonio Brown was faking his concussion when you can see the guy was completely knocked out. You don't flail your arms like that. I mean, if you're faking it for a penalty, maybe you just flop. But this guy was out cold. I've seen enough fights. I've seen enough things to know that this guy was not faking it. And to even insinuate anything like that is just completely disrespectful to not only the Steelers, but really the entire game. These guys going out there risking themselves. People have gotten paralyzed on the field, at the NFL level, and people have died at the high school level and things like that. So just to even insinuate anything like that's insulting. And I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to go on a long rant about it. Maybe that's a podcast for a different day. That said, the Vikings did not deserve their loss. They were the other crazy loss. And I think everybody needs to give Blair Walsh a break. I do think it's, some of these pictures are a little bit funny. Like the Madden picture, the Throwback Thursday thing that they uploaded where, Blair Walsh was just hooking it way left. That's funny to me, but to seriously put the loss on him is kind of ridiculous. I know him making that kick would have won the game for him, but you got to be mad at the rest of your team. You have Adrian Peterson on your team. He couldn't put up any points. Teddy Bridgewater couldn't put up any points for him. They should be mad at those players if they're going to be mad at anybody. But really, at the end of the day, it's a game. You have to be mad at your guys, but give the guy a break. Blair Walsh has been incredibly accurate his whole career, albeit his career has been short. This was a huge moment. The laces were in. Just a whole lot of things went wrong. It's not on this guy, and you can't pin a loss on one guy. So moving on from that, it was a crazy weekend, but let's move on from that and let's look into the future. Another weekend that could be crazy. The playoffs are just crazy in general. The wild card is the only one with the name wild right in it, though, so that's the only one you can really play on the words with. You can't really say the divisional round really led up to its. You can't really say that it didn't live up to its name. But moving on, it's gonna be a fun weekend regardless. So moving on, my picks from last week remain exactly the same except for two things. One of them being, three things. One of them being, of course, that the Packers won and not the Redskins, so that clearly changes it. But other than that, two key changes. I messed up with the seeding, and a lot of people managed to point that out to me. You as you believe, not, and nobody was really kind about it either. Nobody just wanted to point it out, but that's what happens when you don't double check your work. So let that be a lesson if you ever want to start anything up. I did mess up the seeding. The Seahawks are going to play the Panthers. I don't know why I put them as playing the Cardinals. I guess because they were so close to each other. I made it in Photoshop, and I guess I was just, I don't know. I didn't check it back. But they'll be playing the Panthers, and the Packers are going to be playing the Cardinals. If the Redskins had won, they'd be playing the Cardinals, is what I meant to do. But I think the Packers are actually an easier matchup for the Cardinals. The Cardinals match up better against them. More on that later, though, because the third major change is that with the loss of Antonio Brown and D'Angelo Williams still being out, he was kind of expected to come back this week. It's always up in the air, but especially with Antonio Brown out, I now have the Broncos beating the Steelers and not the other way around. This matchup is one of the top two offenses, arguably the top offense. Statistically, they were second in most categories. I'm going to put them at number one just because Ben Roethlisberger was out for so long, and they're still hanging out up there. Michael Vick didn't run the offense effectively at all while he was gone, and to still have the kind of numbers that they have with all that missed time, they're the top offense to me. And they're going against the top defense, arguably, in Denver, at least the top defense in the AFC. Maybe the top defense in the whole NFL. I don't have stats sitting in front of me, but I recall they're definitely in the discussion if they're not the very top. So top offense versus top defense is always a toss-up. I always say that good offense can beat good defense nowadays with the rules in effect. It used to be the other way around, but now with the rules in effect, good offense can beat good defense. But if that top offense is missing its best player, a.k.a. Antonio Brown, that defense is going to win. And it's not as simple as that, because Martavis Bryant is an excellent complement to Brown. He's one of the fastest guys, one of the most explosive guys in the entire league. Thing is, he's more of a big play guy than anything. He's not the kind of guy. Antonio Brown can get, and he did get, like 18 catches in one game. And, Martavis Bryant's not that kind of guy. He's a big play guy. He's going to get a couple catches, and every time he gets a catch, or sometimes they can run with him. Anytime he gets the ball in his hands, he's a scoring threat. That said, he's more of a big play guy. He's not the consistent guy. And Aqib Talib, maybe not as fast as him, but should be able to match up better against him than what he did against Antonio Brown, who torched him for, I believe, 184 yards and a couple scores last time they played. And on top of that, even if Martavis Bryant can get open, it's going to be deep down the field, and they're going to be able to have safety help there. Marcus Wheaton is not going to take the top off of the defense. He's not going to warrant any extra attention, and really, if they wanted to, they might be able to double up on Martavis Bryant. That said, with the way the depth chart is, after Marcus Wheaton, I believe would be Darius Hayward-Bay, another speedy guy. So they do have speed there. That said, they don't have the kind of guy that's going to be the Antonio Brown type guy that can make all the catches and run all the kinds of routes. They have a few deep threats, but as long as the Denver can play well against that, it's going to be a tough day. And with D'Angelo Williams still out, that leads them with Fitzgerald Toussaint, who had a good game last week, but Denver is much better against the run than what the Bengals are just in general. Peyton Manning is back, which is the big story for this game to me, as a fan of Peyton Manning's, and I just want to see him go out in a good way, and I've mentioned that a few times. Is he a better option than Brock Osweiler at this point? I'm not sure. Physically. Mentally, yes. He's been here before, and a lot of people have Peyton Manning pegged as a playoff choker because he doesn't have a very good record in the postseason and things like that, but I don't believe that's the case. He's just a guy that does a lot of planning, a lot of film study and things of that nature. So to insinuate that he chokes in those situations would be to insinuate that he's not prepared for those situations, and I don't think those things are true. He's, like I said, he's back, but how's he going to look? Against the Chargers, he had a solid showing, came back and won the game, but more than anything, it was the run game, and the Chargers had a notoriously bad run defense this year. He didn't have to throw a lot. He wasn't under pressure when he did have to throw. That said, his timing was very good. I remember a few throws to Emmanuel Sanders, where he was throwing the ball before Sanders was even making his cuts, and they were getting there just right on time. So that's what Manning brings to you at this point in his career. He's not the kind of guy who's going to beat you with arm strength. With that said, the Steelers' pass defense isn't as good as it used to be, which is understandable because they lost both Ike Taylor and Troy Polamalu, who were longtime staples of that defense. Their run defense has been good still, and so it's going to be up to Manning to win this game. He doesn't have the arm strength, but he still has the mentality, and he still can read a defense, and it's going to be interesting. If they're going to win, it's going to be him that gets it done for them. And that's how I see it going. And I do see them winning because I think that the defense is going to be able to hold off the Steelers a lot better without Antonio Brown. And they're not going to have to put up a huge amount of points. They're still going to have to put up, 17, 21, maybe 24 kind of points. I can't see the Steelers putting up much more than 21, though, against this defense at this point. And I think Manning is going to be able to give them those amounts of points. It's not a one-person game. Like I said, he's got a great receiving core. He's got, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders are both excellent options. They could be leading options on separate teams. If Emmanuel Sanders, there's a lot of teams that he could be the number one receiver on, so he's definitely a great compliment, a speedy back, and used to be a Steeler, so maybe he'll play with even more passion for that reason. I know he's played him a few times since he's moved on. It's been a few years, but still. With that said, I want to move on to the next game. I don't want to focus the entire thing on one game, of course. So, staying in the AFC, why not? I still had the Patriots over the Chiefs. There's been a lot of off-the-field distractions for the Patriots this week. Mainly Chandler Jones had some type of... It's changed a few times, but it involved drugs and things of that nature. And you hate to see something like that, even if you... There's a lot of people that hate the Patriots because they are so successful, of course. You're going to get people that hate on them, and also, all these cheating allegations. Is it justified? Whatever. But even if you hate a team, you hate to see a guy going down that kind of path. Just think about, a lot of people say, how, you're getting paid all this money, how can you possibly try to throw it away like that? Well, think about if you're in your early 20s. Some people are going to be older than that are listening to this. Some people are, my age. I'm only 20. So I can't imagine getting millions of dollars just out of nowhere all of a sudden. That's not something that's even fathomable to me. What would I do with it? I'd like to say I wouldn't get into that type of situation, but you never know. I'd like to think that I wouldn't, but there's a ton of people I know personally that if given a few $1 million would probably go down that type of path. So you just got to hope that Chandler Jones isn't going down a similar situation where he's developing a serious problem. Maybe this was just a bad, incident. Hopefully it's not a serious problem. His brother is actually two brothers. He's got Arthur Jones of the Colts, and then John Jones actually is his brother, if you didn't already know that, who was a light heavyweight champion for the UFC. He's finally going to be coming back after some time off. He had some serious drug problems and DUIs and things of that nature in the past year, so hopefully they're not going down the same road, and maybe even John can help him with those experiences. I don't want to focus the whole thing on Chandler Jones, but that's definitely a concerning thing when you see something like that. For somebody who's shown a lot of potential, you hate to see somebody go down that type of road. So, even with the off-the-field distractions, the Patriots are a very well-coached team. Bill Belichick, probably the best coach in the NFL, best coach of my time. I'm not going to say he's the greatest of all time, but he's the best coach of my time. I've seen him overcome these types of things before. So I think that they're going to be able to, mentally, they're going to be able to move past that because of the great coaching that they have. To win this game, physically and on the field, Tom Brady's going to have to pick apart the Chiefs' defense with short throws. Marcus Peters is a very good cornerback, like I said last week. Actually, that's the top pass defender in the entire NFL statistically. He tied for leading the league with interceptions with, I believe, 8. And he can shut down any of the receivers on the Patriots one-on-one. Danny Amendola, whoever it may be, he's going to be able to shut them down one-on-one. Julian Edelman, he's back this week. Shut him down. If they put Marcus Peters on Julian Edelman, Edelman's not going to be able to beat him one-on-one, unless it's with these quick, short, like slant type things. He's not going to beat him downfield, is what I'm trying to say. And with that said, there's two sides of the field. The person lining up opposite of Marcus Peters, Brady's not going to be able to throw it deep because Eric Berry's roaming in the backfield, and he's back. He's playing fantastic football, coming back from cancer, which is just a great story. It can't be overstated how awesome of a comeback that is. He's playing great football, too. It's not like he's just coming back and for pity they're putting him out there because they don't have anybody better. He's one of the best in the league, and he's still like that. He's very dangerous. Brady's not going to be able to throw the ball downfield very much this game. For the Chiefs to win, they're going to need to get to Brady very quickly to stop him from throwing these short passes, these slants, these screens, even curl routes and things like that. They're going to have to get to him very quickly to beat that. Can they do that? I'm not sure. Both Tom Ali and Justin Houston are questionable. Very probable that they will be active, in my opinion. That said, are they 100%? Not even close. Houston played last week with a knee brace. He's had that knee injury since week 12, and he still has a knee brace. So you had to imagine that he's still in a good deal of pain. He's still not anywhere near 100%. And Ali's been dealing with knee problems himself, so neither one of them are 100%. It's going to be interesting to see if they can get it done. Another person on the team that's not 100% for the Chiefs, Jeremy Maclin. Is he even going to play? He's questionable, but he's, in my opinion, he's far more questionable than Houston and Holly. They should be listed as probable. I can't see either of them not playing based off of what I'm reading and how they've been doing in practice and things like that. Macklin's still up in the air, and even he's the biggest threat on this team offensively. He's made a huge difference. He could be the X factor, and the fact of the matter is that he's either going to be out or he's going to be very limited. That looked like a very serious injury. There was a time where it looked like he'd maybe torn his ACL and things of that nature. Thankfully, it was just an ankle sprain, which is still extremely painful to try to play through, especially when you're trying to make these cuts like Macklin's going to have to do as a wide receiver. So him being injured is a huge deal for this game. It's going to make it a lot harder for the Chiefs to win. That said, they have Travis Kelce, who is one of the top 5 tight ends in the entire league. And on the other side of him, on the other team, is Rob Gronkowski, probably the best tight end in the entire league. In fact, I'll say he is the best tight end in the entire league. So you got 2 of the top 5, and I think this game is really going to showcase just how dominant that number 1 is. Gronkowski's on a whole different level as these other guys. The only guy playing to a similar level as Gronkowski is Jordan Reed, and it's going to be interesting to see, in the future. But I think the 2 of them, especially Gronkowski, are really changing the way that the game is being played as far as the tight end position goes. And I think ultimately, the Chiefs, just with these injuries and just the way they match up, I don't think they're going to be able to stop Tom Brady. I think he has a very big day, and I think I don't think the run game is going to be much of a factor. But I think the Patriots will win this game through Tom Brady's arms. Well, through his arm, not through his arms. But anyway, moving on. We're going to go to the NFC. I said the Packers matchup is even easier for the Cardinals earlier, and there's a couple reasons why. The Seahawks just overall are a better team than the Packers are. It just, in my opinion, I think there's more talent on that team, especially with, and I can't overstate it, Jordy Nelson being out. I think Packers would have a much better season this year with Jordy Nelson there. When you lose your top receiver, that's difficult for any team. And also, the Seahawks would have been a divisional matchup for the Cardinals. I've stated how I feel about divisional matchups. They're toss-ups no matter how the teams are doing. So to get away from that will definitely be good for the Cardinals. Also, the Cardinals just absolutely embarrassed the Packers like a month ago. Extremely one-sided. Packers never really looked good at all that entire game. There is hope for the Packers, though. They played very well after the first quarter last week. It looked like it was going to be another bad game for them. It looked like they were out. It looked like exactly what I said was going to happen. Rodgers started the game 1 of 8, I believe. They were down by 11 to start the game off. Their big change was that they went to an up-tempo offense, which is something that Aaron Rodgers actually prefers to do. And I always say if a quarterback that is a veteran prefers to run an offense a certain way and he plays better a certain way, you should definitely do that. But I've seen around the league multiple teams that it's not always the case, but they managed to do that. He went to an up-tempo offense, and they outscored the Redskins 35-7 to end the game on 18-35. So it looked like they were the ones that were dominating, but they played very bad in the first quarter, including giving up a safety. Eddie Lacy and James Starks both put up a touchdown during that comeback. They need to stay hot to give Green Bay a chance. Both of them, I think, or at least one of them needs to be. Let's say they're at a blue heat right now. If they're fire, they're both at a blue heat. One of them needs to go full on white, and the other one needs to stay orange, at least at an orange level. And that's a fire analogy, which is something that I've never done, but that's how it needs to be done for them to have any chance in this. Ultimately, the Cardinals are just a better team all around to me. They have a better wide receiving core, especially, like I said, especially with Jordy Nelson being out, and they just have a better pass defense. There's nothing to write home about for the Packers' pass defense, and they've been dealing with injuries. The Cardinals are dealing with an injury too. Ty Matthews out at the safety position, but they're just a better pass defense, and they have the better receiving core, and that's what it's going to come down to is the pass game. Unless the Packers can absolutely dominate with the run game, I can't see them winning this game. This game's either going to be one-sided for the Cardinals again, or Rodgers and Lacy, Starks, or all three of them can stay hot and make it a shootout. But I think either way, even with this shootout, I think the Cardinals will score more points, which is the definitive way to win in this league. So I think that's how the game's going to go. I got the Cardinals winning this one. And That leaves the number 1 seed, the Carolina Panthers. Almost had the undefeated season, 15-1. Definitely nothing to be upset about. But you want to definitely, as a team, you want to be 16-0. Feels much better than 15-1. Like, the difference between being 15-1 and 14-2 maybe isn't all that much, but the difference between being 15-1 and 16-0 is huge. So they're playing. They've been playing great football. They got upset by guess what, a divisional game against Atlanta. And they're going against the number 6 seed in Seattle, who was 10-6, I believe. And Seattle was extremely hot up until last week. They got cooled off by negative temperatures, ironically enough. They played awful last week, actually. I'll go that far. That's not going to be an issue this week. Carolina is going to be much, much, much warmer than what it was in Minnesota last week. Minnesota, I believe, was the 3rd coldest game in NFL history last week. And I've played just backyard type football. We play tackle in cold weather, and I'm not talking -5. I'm talking like 20. It's not pleasant to get hit, and I do not envy anybody having to be out there for that long of an amount of time. But with that said, the Seahawks 100% should have lost that game last week. Blair Walsh missed that field goal to end the game, and it's an extremely short field goal, actually shorter than an extra point, I believe. Normally, Blair Walsh makes that kick about 105 times out of 100, and that is not an exaggeration. He's been extremely accurate throughout his career. Like I said, he's had a short career, very good kicker throughout that time. He normally makes that kick, whether it be the snap and the hold and all that, or if he just, let the nerves get to him. It doesn't matter. He normally makes that kick, and the Seahawks should have lost that game. They put up 1 touchdown the entire game, and really, I don't want to use the term lucky, but that's kind of what they got. They should have lost that game. They did not play well enough to win that game, but they put up more points. And like we discussed with the Packers-Cardinals matchup, if you score more points, that's how you win. So, easy as that. They move on. Like I said, though, before that game, Seattle was absolutely on fire. The tandem of Russell Wilson and Doug Baldwin has been absolutely dominant. Baldwin led the league with touchdowns. I believe it was 14, might have been 15. I don't have the exact number, but I know he led the league, and I know a lot of that came in the back half. They've just been lighting up multiple touchdown games. I believe the last 3 games in a row, maybe even 4 games in a row, multiple touchdowns, or at least 3 of the last 4, something like that. Just awesome games. Russell Wilson had the highest quarterback rating during the last, I believe, 6 games of the season. They've just been great. With that said, Doug Baldwin has been the number 1 option for Russell Wilson, and really there hasn't been much behind that. It's just been the 2 of them. And this week, Doug Baldwin will be against my defensive MVP, Josh Norman, who has shut down the likes of Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, and Odell Beckham Jr. this year. And then a lot of people will say, well, Beckham scored a touchdown on him. Well, that's it. That's all he did. He scored, it was like a 15-yard touchdown the entire game in the 4th quarter. And these are the top 4 wide receivers in the NFL, according to the list that I made earlier this year on one of my podcasts, and also just by looking at statistics is how it wound up being. Top 4 wide receivers in the league. He held all of them to under 50 yards, I want to say offhand. But all 4 of them didn't even put up enough stats to accommodate for what one of them by himself would do in a typical week. That's just how dominant he's been. Like I said, those are the 4 best in the NFL. Doug Baldwin has been great, but he's not a top 4 wide receiver. He's not on the level that those guys are on. He's on a hot streak, but before that, I don't know. Doug Baldwin kind of came out of nowhere to me. Even with the way he's been playing, he hasn't been on the likes of them, and I think he can get shut down. I think he's going to be shut down by Josh Norman. I think it's going to be very difficult for Seattle to score points, whether Marshawn Lynch comes back or not, which is still up in the air as far as I know. Overall for this game, points are going to be really hard to come by. I think the guy who is going to find those points that are so hard to come by, I think the guy is Greg Olsen. The Seahawks, great secondary. Everybody knows the Legion of Boom, Kim Chancellor, Earl Thomas, Richard Sherman, just an absolutely great secondary. They can shut down all of Carolina's wide receivers, Ted Ginn, and then the rest of the company. They're not going to be able to do much. That said, they haven't been that great against tight ends, and Greg Olsen is one of the best. I mentioned that Kelsey was a top 5. I believe that Greg Olsen is number 3. I think it goes Gronkowski, Jordan Reed, and then Greg Olsen. That's how I see it. So I think Greg Olson's the X factor in this game. I know I used the term X factor earlier, and I meant to not do it again, but here we are. I think he is the definitive game changer in this one. I think Carolina wins this one. I think it's a close, low-scoring game. So it's going to be a defensive struggle, which is something that you don't see a lot with the way that the rule changes have been. So it'll be kind of refreshing. Some people probably call it boring. I'm sure Cam Newton will keep it from being boring. I'm sure he'll have a few good... Him and Russell Wilson. I'm sure both some big quarterback runs and things of that nature. But I think overall the scoring is going to be very limited. Points are going to be extremely hard to come by. But like I said, Greg Olson is going to be a difference maker in this one. And I think that they move on to face the Cardinals. I've already stated I believe that the Cardinals beat the Panthers in that game and go to the Super Bowl. So that will leave the AFC matchup being the Broncos and the Patriots, and I'll talk more about that next week probably, if it even happens. Maybe the people I say win don't win this week. Maybe I'm just completely wrong. Maybe I'm wrong about every game, but we'll see how it plays out. I'm gonna end it there though. I'm sure I'll be making another podcast next week, maybe two. I've got a few things in mind that I want to do, but no promises. With that said, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you continue to listen and leave your opinions in the comment section or message me, do whatever you want. And just have a great day. Thank you.